and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I'm going to be working with the Spellbinders small die of the month for February 2022, and I'll be making a custom flip card. So I've got my panel cut down already to 8.5 by 7, and the 8.5 is across the top, and I'm going to just score it at 4 inches and 5 inches. That doesn't have to be exact. You want to, sorry, not score, but draw some lines. You just want to aim for those lines to be somewhere in the middle. And what's cool about this die set is that it has a split rim outer cutting edge die, and I'm lining that up with that blue pencil mark, and the green line there was the second pencil mark. And what's awesome with these split rim dies is that it's only going to cut that half of the outline for the oval frame that I'll be using. That's fantastic because otherwise, to do this technique, I would use a full oval die and do a partial die cutting. But with the split rim, you can actually run the whole thing through and you know that it's not going to cut more than it needs to. Now on this side, I do have to do a partial die cut, so I'm lining up the top of my plate with the pencil mark that I drew. That was the green line when I did the freeze frame. And so I'm going to do a partial die cut from the right edge up to that line. So it's rather nice to have these split rim dies because it does make part of this process a little bit easier, especially since for me anyhow, the most challenging thing that I find when I create my custom flip cards is finding the exact center point of a circle or an oval. And if you're off a little bit, then you might see a little bit of a gap when you go to flip the card. And so here what I'm illustrating is where I'm scoring. So where you see the blue lines and where you see the green lines, that's where I'm scoring. I'm not going to score through the oval shape. I want that to be solid, but I need for this card to fold on those pencil marks. So I'm just going to start at the top edge, go to the cut line, then starting at the bottom edge, go up to the cut line from the bottom. And I'm going to do that on both of my pencil marks. On what was the green pencil mark, or the line that was closest to the right, that's going to be a valley fold. So you saw me flip my card panel over and score from the back. And that's because generally you want to fold your score lines as mountain folds. And this folds perfectly to where when you have this folded down, there's no gap. And it's just perfect every time. So I think it's pretty awesome actually to have these split rim dies because the die is exactly in half, so it makes it really convenient. And I'll be making a 5 by 7 card, so I just trimmed off a little bit from the left and a little bit from the right to make this 5 by 7. So let me show you the rest of the dies. So there's the larger oval design, which I've die cut already out of some gold mirror card. And when you combine the two split rims for the outer edge, the decorative die, and then the inner aperture die, this is what you get. And there is a little bit that you have to snip off because, of course, that outer edge isn't a full cut line. So where the two dies meet up, there won't actually be a cut there. But that's a really, really small gap. So if you want, you can do what I did, which was just to take an emery board and sand it down a little bit, and then you don't have a rough edge or an irregular edge where you had to snip with your scissors. And so this is how I'll be sort of layering this up. So I took the same inner aperture die and I cut that out of black, and I've already foiled the hello there sentiment, which came in the Glimmer of the month for this month. And for this black panel, I've cut it to 3.5 by 7, and I'm gonna line up that split rim die so that I can cut this edge here so that it butts up exactly with the cut line of our panel here. So you can see that matches exactly. And I think that gives a nice effect of the black and white and that touch of gold. So here I've already assembled a couple of flowers. I'm going to do just some very simple shaping where from the underside or the back side of the flower, I'm just going to use my ball stylus to give it some shape. And around the edges, I actually turn my ball stylus around to the smaller size ball and I just push along just the edge. And that forces them to actually curl in even more so that I get a more extreme, curl there and more crinkling. And so these flower dies are actually from the APG die of the month for this month. So you can see everything plays really well together, and you can sort of mix and match the various sets. So if you are part of one of the value clubs, you'll get a lot of sort of versatility and a lot of use out of these because they're just so general purpose. You can mix and match between the different club kits and really any die set that's in your stash because these are just gorgeous to use on any project. And to finish off this little flower, I'll put a glitter sort of enamel dot right in the middle there. And that's going to bring in a little bit of the black. Now, since I am working on a mirror card, I was holding it down for a little bit longer just to make sure that it has a chance to dry a little bit. Now, this small die of the month is actually designed so that you can do some stitching, which is something that I've actually never done before. So I thought that it was really fun to give this a try, and I do have a lot of embroidery floss, so this just helps me kind of use some of that stash up. And what I like to do is I like to tape the back to kind of anchor my embroidery floss, and as I go from flower to flower, it also helps to kind of hide the thread so that you don't see it from the top side, because otherwise if you go straight from one flower to the next, if you look closely anyways, you might be able to see that line of thread from peeking through, even though it's on the back side of the card. And the sewing is really simple. There's a hole in the center of the flower, and so think of it as sort of spokes on a bicycle. You just go from an outer hole into the center and back to the next hole on the outer edge and back into the center. And so here you can see I'm angling the thread so that it's actually going towards the center, and then when it comes back around, it's going to come exactly at the hole that I want to enter. And so that way you don't see the path of where that thread travels from one flower to the next. And I feel like that just makes it a little bit cleaner. Yes, you use up a little bit of extra thread, but I think ultimately it takes so little thread anyways that it's well worth it for that cleaner finish. And I'm using 3 strands out of the 6 strands that my embroidery floss comes in. And it's a variegated floss that has along the entire stretch of the thread, it changes colors in this really nice ombre. And one of the tips that I would recommend is cut yourself like not too long of a stretch, because I feel when I did this the first time, because I've done 2 cards like this now, the first time I just wanted to as long of a thread as I thought I would need, and I went a little bit overboard on the length, and sewing was really hard because you have to pull it through a longer distance, and because the thread is longer, it also had more of a tendency to get a little bit tangled. So when I did this the second time, I went with a shorter thread, even though that meant I did have to kind of tie off in the middle of the project and start a new thread. But I still think it went a lot faster to do that, and I don't think visually it's noticeable where I left off on one section of thread and where I picked up on the new section. And if your thread isn't variegated, then it won't matter anyways. You won't be able to spot the difference. And as an optional step, what I did was I took that inner aperture die and I just die cut out of plain white and glued that onto the back. And yes, it does clean up all of those edges, but it's not like that would be seen anyways. The main reason why I did that was just to level everything off so that the center portion of that oval piece is a little bit more flush, because the thread did add some thickness to the back there. And I have a second glimmered sentiment from this month's Glimmer of the Month, and this is a really fun one too. It's a birthday sentiment that reads, "Friends, fun, and presents. Happy birthday." And it's a nice size sentiment. As you can see, this is a 5x7 card, and this whole oval is a really nice size. It will fit on a US A2 size card as well, but it's nice that it can also take center stage on a larger card too. So really love the scale of this. And on top of that, the small die of the month has this oval frame, but it also has a smaller one nested within it. So you do get two oval frames in this one set, so that's really nice. And now that the inside of my, and I know the stitching is sort of the unique aspect of this die set, and it seems odd that I would put that on the inside of the back of the flip, but I kind of thought that it would be a nice surprise element, so that when you flip this open, you get like another wow factor, because the front of the card is going to have a lot of gold and a lot of bling, but I don't think you're going to expect to see stitching. And so I think it's going to be just a nice little surprise when you flip this open, especially since that's where the primary, or that's where I chose to put the primary sentiment, because that's the one that actually says happy birthday. So that was my thought process behind it anyways. I like to kind of have that little bit of a surprise element. And here I'm just playing with some arrangements. I have die cut the leaves from both gold pearlescent paper and vellum. I thought it might be interesting to combine the two and have a little layered effect. So I pulled out my make art station so I can use my magnets to hold down that flip, because it was just too hard to struggle with trying to move things around and keep this flap nice and flat. But ultimately, I decided that I wanted to go with more of a asymmetrical look, and instead of centering it, and I decided not to use the vellum leaves at all. So that sometimes happens. Something kind of seems like a good idea in my head to start, and then when I start playing around with it, I can't find a way to make it work the way that I thought it would in my head. And so then I just go to my plan B. But these leaves are really nice. I like them because there's two separate dies, and they're mirrored, so they curve in opposite directions. So they're really good for designs like these where you want it to curve in one direction on one side or one end, and curve in the other or opposite direction on the other end. So I love that they've given us two separate dies so that we can really kind of create this shape. And to finish this off, I'm going to add some more of my glitter enamel dots, and I thought about with the black and white using black glitter dots on the white side, and then silver on the opposite side, because I thought that that would be a nice sort of kind of a flip-flop of, you know, the black and white. But since I don't use silver anywhere else, I thought that it would be weird to introduce it, so I decided to go with gold instead, which I like. I don't know if that was the right decision, but I do like it. So I'm glad that that I went with that. And that is going to pretty much finish off my card. Now, I did use my Kalau 3D glue gel to adhere my flowers, and that's why I left that to last, because I knew I would use an adhesive that's dimensional, and I wanted to get everything on the inside secured so that it doesn't, so that it's nice and flat and I can actually burnish it nicely. And so I'll have to kind of set this aside because I think it takes a good, maybe a few hours before it's dry enough to really be solidly there where you can't move it around anymore. But I think it might take like a full 12, maybe even 24 hours to be like completely cured and dry. But here's a close-up of the stitching and the card, and it's just really fun. Now, I have to admit, the stitching does take some time, so, you know, for me anyways, I think, you know, this card is going to go to someone really special, so, but it is a lot of fun and well worth it because it looks beautiful in the end. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider liking, commenting, and sharing. And if you'd like to catch new videos as I post them, click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Thanks so much, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye!